Hello, everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on rashpixel.fm. I'm Pete Wright, and I'm here, as always, with Nikki Kinzer.
Wouldn't it be funny if sometime it wasn't like me, it was somebody else? Surprise!
I'm here with Glenn Close.
Right, yes. I'm here, though. It's me. It's me. Just joking.
Excellent. Excellent. We're taking on, this is kind of like last week. We were talking about the escape room, and I didn't tell you what we were doing and this is, I'm feeling that
right?
way.
Yes.
I feel like I'm coming into this a little bit hot. I don't know what we're doing today. I'm very excited about it. All I know is we're talking about taking on new things.
I don't really know what we're doing either, so we're just going to wing it.
But I'm sure it will be fantastic all the same.
It's going to be fantastic.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah. Before we get started, head over to TakeControlADHD.com. Get to know us a little bit better. You can listen to the show there on the website or subscribe to the mailing list, and we'll send you an email each time a new episode is released. You can connect with us on Twitter or Facebook at TakeControlADHD. All right. Opening announcements.
Yes. Group coaching. Spring group coaching. It's open. Enrollment is open. I just said all of that twice. That's funny.
It is.
Just, with a big exclamation mark.
Yes.
Yes, it begins the week of April through June, middle of June. It is 10 weeks long. Two groups. We have two groups to choose from, a Monday group and a Tuesday group. And we do have limited spots. So if this is something that you're interested in doing, maybe you've been thinking about it for a while, now is a great time to do it. So just don't wait to sign up, because I don't want to have to put you on the waiting list. So definitely go to the website, check it out. Enrollment will close on March 22nd. And if you have any questions about how the group coaching works, definitely go to the website. There's a lot of detail about everything that's involved and what you can expect. And then, of course, if you have any questions, you can always email me.
This show is brought to you by you, the patrons of the ADHD podcast. You can support the show directly with your hard-earned doubloons, ducats, dollars, euros, whatever you've got, over at patreon.com/the ADHD podcast. If this show has ever supported you, has ever touched you, if you've changed the way you live as a result of something you've heard here, or if you're just feeling gracious, we'll take that too. Head over to patreon.com/the ADHD podcast. You can join the tribe of those living with ADHD and join our fantastic Discord group community that is available to members only, and with people who live and share their stories. It's amazing the support that is cultivated there from those living with ADHD. I learn something new every time I jump in there. So head over, support the show. We appreciate it. You're helping us meet great new goals as we attempt to grow the show and support our production and hosting costs. It's not a free thing that we do, but we do love it, and we thank you for your consideration. Patreon.com/the ADHD podcast to learn more. All right, Nikki Kinzer, it's your turn.
Yes.
We're going to open with the opening question, which has come into us, and then you're going to take us on a wild, wild ride.
Right, because then that's what the topic's going to be about.
Yeah.
So exactly. You got it. All right. So this is the question. I was TAing last night. I got asked at the end when I'll be TAing again for a full class session. And this is what I'm trying to figure out. And sort it in a prioritization scope, what that answer is. I love to say yes to things to help out, etc., but I know I'm not 100% realistic or knowing about my bandwidth and don't want to get in over my head. And I'm also practicing how to say no or if saying yes, but with the expectation and parameter setting. So setting some boundaries around that yes. Mm-hmm. And this is a great question because it really is talking about how do I know if it's okay for me to take something on? How do I know if I have enough time and am I going to get over my head? So I think there's a lot of us that can relate to this. When you do say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. So what is that expense, and is it worth it? Does that make sense to you?
It does. Yes, it does. And dare I say, I have a little bit of experience living
Well, good, because I'm going to tell you about a recent experience that I had. And then I want you to share with the listeners of a time where you had to either say yes or no to something that you were trying to figure out if you had the bandwidth to do. And then we'll go from there. How does that sound?
I love it. Yeah,
All
let's
right.
do that thing.
So I had a recent situation come up where I had asked Pete Wright, right over there.
Oh no. Oh no.
If I know you're involved in this, I thought it would be a great idea for him and I to do a proposal for the Chad ADA conference that's happening in November. And this is a goal of mine that I would like to do someday, is to be a presenter at the Chad conference. And we have to do a proposal, and you have to talk about what you would be, what your topic is and what your points are. So there's a lot of prep work that has to get or that has to happen before you can do the proposal. Well, I was really excited about doing this. Pete, you were a little bit like, "Oh, I don't know," and then you got excited.
This was me. I think you're taking my example.
Oh.
Keep going. Keep going.
Okay. All right. Well, you'll have a different perspective, maybe. So yeah. So he wasn't real sure, and then I got excited, got him on to be excited, and then I pulled the plug and said, "Nope, I don't want to do it anymore. I can't do it." I shouldn't say I don't want to. I really couldn't. And first of all, I did have to really think a lot about this because it is out of my comfort zone. It is challenging because I do want to make sure that, I do all of it right. I don't want to be rushed. And so when it came down to making a decision and having the information ready for them by their deadline, there was just no way that I had any time to put into it what I would want to put into it. And that was me looking at my schedule, looking at the deadline. And if I was to pay attention to this the way that I wanted to pay attention to it, it would be at the expense of my current clients, and it would be at expense of me personally on my own weekend time. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't willing to give up either one. And so at this point, I figured, okay, I have a very busy client schedule. They're my first priority. They need to get all of me. And because they're getting all of me during the week, I need to make sure that I'm giving myself the time for rest and, family and all of that on the weekends. And so it really came down to, I did not have the bandwidth. If this deadline had been later, then I probably could have done it because I could have planned for it a little bit better. But the deadline was last week. It's like I couldn't do it. There was just no way I could do it.
Right. Well, and that was the time pressure. That was the ticking clock.
Right.
That they wanted, the organizers wanted all of our materials
now
really early, right? And so there was certainly some time pressure there. From my experience with that was really interesting. The other side of that was, I was feeling pressure of how would we live up to an academic conference, right? What could we do that's interesting, that really demonstrates our strengths, and is that the appropriate venue for the kind of stuff that we do? And I was concerned about that, frankly. Like I wanted to make sure that we were in doing ourselves service in our best light, and did not want to say yes to that, not necessarily because of the time pressure explicitly, but that it would take us a great deal of time to do something that would live up to that standard that I'd set in my head. And it was only after we'd gotten word from other past guests who are involved also in the conference, past guests on our show who are our friends, who said, "Oh, you are way overthinking this.
Right.
You need to do this."
Go for it.
That I started getting excited about it. I thought, okay, maybe we can do this.
We can.
And that's when Nikki pulled the plug. So that was a delightful sort of turn of events.
Yes.
And I guess for me, the upside is I'm still enthusiastic about it whenever. Right. I got to get over that hump. I want to go back to this client situation, or to the person who submitted their question. Like, I feel like on my side of the conversation, it was, when you try to figure out how to prioritize, it was, asking yourself the emotional questions first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is this a project that I can give myself wholly to and believe that I'm the right person to deliver it?
Right.
That was an important thing for me to come
question.
to terms with.
Right. Yeah.
Because there are so many projects that we're approached, and we take on out of convenience or out of necessity, out of financial necessity. But it's okay to stop and say, am I the right person? I have to come to terms with that first.
Absolutely. Well, especially in our situation as well. I mean, I think that's a really good question to ask.
Right.
Okay, so going back to her question too about the bandwidth and just should I take this? Like, what do I need to think about? So today's show is not going to be so much about me giving you tips, because I don't really think there's a way to know exactly what your bandwidth is, because it's such a personal thing. And so what I'm going to share with you are some ways that you can coach yourself through getting to an answer and figuring out what that might be for you. So it's going to be different for everyone. With that said, though, I still have one recommendation.
Okay.
Of course. Never say yes right away. Even if you think you want to do it, I would still say give yourself some time to really think about it and make sure that this is what you want to do, and follow the process that I'm going to have us go through today with asking yourself these questions before you make a decision. And so I do think it's good to pause and not say yes right away.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly. And that has become one of the great strengths of that I feel like I have built over the years, is trying to say no responsible to myself and to my other commitments, and also not offensively, right? To be able to say no, and it's not because I don't love you.
Right. I still love you. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't have the question that you asked, but I think I would add that first is asking the question if you're the right person for whatever's being asked. I think that's a really good point, especially depending on the context of what you're considering. Second, I think you need to ask if this is something you really want to do. Is this something that you want, or do you feel obligated in some way to do it? Do you feel like that should, right? We've talked about should before.
Yeah.
And,
never should on yourself.
Yeah, don't shoot on yourself. It's just not nice. It doesn't look good. It's just not good, right? Yeah. But we have to consider that and really figure out if this is, what makes this important to you. So if it's not a should and it is something you really want to do, why? Does that matter? And I would also consider looking at your current calendar right now and your schedule, and how are you feeling right now at this moment?
Well, that was you.
What's that?
That was your defining question, right? As you looked at your personal calendar.
Yes. So from 1 to 10. Like I don't have a lot of room to do anything right now other than what I already have scheduled. And I'm thankful, believe me, I'm very grateful for what my schedule looks like right now. But I also know that I can't take anything else on. And so that's the overwhelm of being at a 10, right? Like I can't take anything else on. But if you're looking at your calendar and your schedule and you're thinking, I do have a few hours in the day that I'm not doing anything, or I'm not committed to, or I'm not, the weekends aren't crazy busy, and I could certainly, do this for a couple hours and not go into that overwhelm. Then, that's what you have to think about is how are you feeling about your schedule right now? And how much time is this project going to take? So with TAing, I'm not exactly sure what all that entails. But you have to think about not just the time you're in class, but the time that you prep, and are you grading papers? I mean, right?
There's a lot to it. My experience is working with a TA that my TA worked a lot harder than I did.
Right.
That's sad. That's sad to say, but they take on a heavy amount of work in terms of grading and meeting with students and scheduling and all kinds of things. And they're present in the class,
Right.
So it's the scut work, right? It's grudge work, and it's not always pleasant. You've got to find a way to fall in love with it. And if you can't come to terms with all of the things that we're talking about here, it's going to be hard to prioritize around. It's going to be hard to answer that emotional question.
Well, and when we think about how much time it takes, right, once we're considering all of those things, you also have to consider your ADHD. Because whatever you think it's going to take is probably going to take longer, right? So you still have to have that buffer time in place, knowing that it's going to take longer than what you expect. So you look at the time you think it's going to take, you double that, and then you look at your current calendar and your schedule, and how do you feel? Can you really take that on? So you're kind of thinking it through, visualizing yourself, like, where am I going to actually get this work done? And how is that going to feel when I'm in it? And that's what I thought of when I thought, well, I could work on this over the weekend. And then I thought, you know what? If I'm doing that, I'm going to be resentful. And I'm going to want to be doing something else. That's not the frame of mind you should be in when you are putting together a presentation for a national organization.
Yes, that is absolutely true. There are better mindsets to have.
Yes. Yeah. So that's what you have to think about. And really, how is it going to affect your schedule? And how is it going to fit in? And again, like what I was just talking about, when you're saying yes to this, what do you say no to? And are you okay with sacrificing that? And, you got to really think about it before you say yes, because you don't want to say yes and then get in the middle of it and kind of know by instinct that you probably shouldn't have done it in the first place.
Truly.
Right? We want to kind of prevent that regret.
That feeling, it by definition, it's always too late.
Right.
If you're feeling it, it's too late.
Yeah. Yes. Good point.
You know then that you made the wrong choice.
Absolutely. And another question I think you should ask is, does this fit into your values? This is not a question that we ask just sort of with intuition. It's like, it doesn't always just come to mind, but I do think it's important to think about, and why this came to mind when I was looking at her question is because she says, I really like to help people. Well, if one of your values is I really like to help people, I want to volunteer my time. Again, you have to look at, yes, that's really important. Is this the right project though for you to do that? Right? Is it taking too much of your time, or would it be better for you to volunteer somewhere that might be only 2 hours a week rather than 12, or whatever the case might be. So, just do a check on the values. Like, where does this fit? And with her question about boundaries, I really like this, right? Because you could still say yes, but set some boundaries. So it's not so black and white. It's not like yes or no. And so if you want to say yes, but you do need to set some boundaries in order for you to commit, I would think about what the ideal situation is for you in this, whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's TAing or whatever. But what would be an ideal amount of hours and time and all of that? And then you have to ask yourself what happens if they don't follow those boundaries. Because that could very well happen. Yeah. You've set them, but they didn't follow through on their end. So are you able to get out at that time or at that point, or are you committed? So I would just kind of do a little bit of foreshadowing in case these things happen, right? Just to kind of see how you would prepare. And if they don't follow through the boundaries, are you still going to commit? Can you still take on the extra time even if they don't do it without resentment?
This is a great tool for journaling, right? To sit down and write out the possible horizons for you if this doesn't go well. It's not like you're looking for manufacturing an escape hatch, right?
Right.
But you do want to know if this is a big and significant project and it starts to take a toll, what does that horizon look like?
Exactly.
And can you do it, saving your own reputation?
You're right.
Can you do it without damaging others' reputation? How do you do it?
I am big about trusting your instinct. So what is your instinct telling you? And this came back to me definitely when we were thinking about the CHAD conference, because something wasn't right. And I can't tell you why. I can't tell you what it was. But I just know that my instinct was telling me not to do it because I wasn't as 100% into it as I felt like I should have been. And it probably was because of the schedule and just the time constraints that I have right now. But I have to listen to my instinct because something just wasn't quite right.
Absolutely.
So, that helps. That helps me anyway, be able to walk away from the decision. Couple other coaching questions that I think are really helpful is, when do you need to make this decision? We had a deadline. She probably has a deadline. Right? Because it's a TA situation. Right. A lot of us, when we have to make a decision about something that affects our time, has some kind of deadline. So when do you need to make it? And what else do you need to make this decision? Do you need to talk it out more? Do you need to get more information? Do you need to ask more about the boundaries? Really get an idea of what you need to make this decision and ask yourself, how close are you to making this decision? And what's it going to take for you to just make it and walk away and be okay with it?
Well, and get to work potentially, right? I mean, that's the other side of this. As soon as you make the decision, you get to go get work done. Right.
Absolutely. And the weight of it being off your shoulders is huge because I think the worst thing for me, most anxiety-driven thing for me is being in indecision. Yeah. That's just awful. So if I can go through these questions and really think it through and be able to walk away from it with whatever choice I've made, then I'm going to feel better about it. So that's my thoughts for her. It's, there is no black and white answer that says, okay, if you do this, this, and this, you have enough time in your schedule. It's so individual. Right. And, we need to really think about those things before we say yes. So hopefully that helped.
Yes, totally. I love it. And I like hashing out the whole CHAD thing with you.
Yes. Online or on air.
In real time. That is something I'm still very much looking forward to. I'm disappointed that we're not going to be hanging out, doing something official. But that's not to say that, we aren't still talking about going together. I know you're going. I'm not sure if I'm going, but that is definitely something that we are talking about and hopeful that we can make that work. That
Absolutely.
We will be in Pennsylvania in November.
And who knows, if it all works out, we could, maybe potentially be presenting in 2020.
That's right.
It's a nice ring to that, really.
Know.
Yeah.
Take control in 2020.
There you go. They have to accept us. But they have to accept the proposal. But
right. We'll figure something out.
That's just a little joke we have to,
details.
Yeah.
You'll get it. Thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to the show. We deeply appreciate your time and your attention. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright. We'll catch you next time right here on Taking Control, the ADHD Podcast.